"Can you give me a hug, please?" The trembling voice of a dirt-streaked girl cut through the cold evening air as she clutched the edge of an old park bench, her tiny frame shaking under the weight of a world far too heavy for her shoulders. A single father, exhausted from a day of fighting battles no one saw, turned at the sound, never expecting that this small request, spoken with fragile hope, would change both of their lives forever. The girl's eyes glimmered with a painful mix of fear, loneliness, and a desperate yearning for warmth. And in that haunting moment, the world seemed to pause, waiting to see what he would do next. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel to support stories that touch the heart. The man named Daniel had not planned to be in the park that evening. Life had pushed him there, life and the weight of responsibilities he carried alone ever since his wife passed away, leaving him with his 5-year-old son, Liam. Daniel was the kind of father who tried his best, even when the world offered him nothing but hardship in return. His days were spent at a small mechanic shop where the pay was barely enough to keep the lights on, and his nights were dedicated to caring for his son with the tenderness of a man who knew what loss felt like too deeply. He had grown used to being tired, used to hiding his struggles from Liam, and used to carrying pain without complaint. But he had not grown used to seeing pain in someone else's eyes, especially a child. The girl standing before him looked no older than Liam, yet her clothes hung loosely as if they once belonged to someone bigger, someone who had stopped caring long ago. Her hair was uncombed, her lips were cracked from the cold, and her hands trembled as though she had been wandering alone for far too long. Daniel's heart clenched at the sight. He wondered where she came from, who had let her walk around like this, and why she looked at him with the kind of longing and fear that only a child who had seen too much could carry. She stood just a few feet away, but her eyes made it feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure if she should jump toward hope or pull back into the darkness she knew. Daniel bent down slowly, not wanting to startle her but wanting her to see that he wasn't a threat. He noticed how she inhaled shakily, as if gathering strength just to stand still. He could tell she hadn't eaten properly in days, and the bruises on her thin arms spoke louder than words ever could. She reminded him of a fragile bird, wings battered by storms, still trying to fly. When she whispered again, asking if she could have a hug, her voice cracked with a vulnerability that pierced through every wall Daniel had ever built around his own pain. He hesitated only for a heartbeat, before opening his arms gently. The moment he did, something inside her seemed to break. She stepped forward slowly, as if she feared he might change his mind, and then she clung to him with the desperate grip of a child holding on to the last piece of hope she had left. Tears soaked into his jacket as her small body trembled against his chest. Daniel held her carefully, protectively, feeling her pain seep into him like cold rain. He didn't know who she was or what she had endured, but he knew she needed this, needed someone, anyone, to hold her and tell her she wasn't invisible. As he held her, Daniel felt Liam tug at his sleeve. His son's innocent eyes were full of confusion and concern, but also something pure, compassion. Liam reached out and gently patted the girl's shoulder, as if offering comfort the way he himself had received comfort from his father during nights when grief had overwhelmed their home. The girl's sobs quieted, but she didn't let go. She held on to Daniel like she had never been held before, and it broke him in ways he didn't expect. When she finally loosened her grip, she stepped back with her head lowered. It was then Daniel noticed how she avoided eye contact when he asked her softly, through gestures and calm expressions, where her parents were. The answer was written all over her small, frightened face. She had none. She had been abandoned by those who should have loved her first. She had survived on scraps, on hiding, on hoping that one day someone would look at her and see more than a burden. The realization hit Daniel so hard that his breath caught. How could anyone leave a child like this to wander alone? He didn't think long before taking her hand, offering her warmth and safety without hesitation. He took her home for the night, fed her, cleaned her wounds, and let her sleep next to Liam, where she finally closed her eyes without fear. Watching the two children sleep side by side, Daniel felt something shift inside him. He had always believed he had only enough strength for one child, but now he realized compassion didn't divide his heart, it expanded it. The next days were filled with uncertainty, but also with moments that touched him deeply. The girl, whom he later learned was named Ella, began to smile again, not fully but enough to show a glimpse of the child she could become. She followed him everywhere, her small steps echoing trust slowly rebuilding itself. She played with Liam, shared laughter, and clung to Daniel's hand whenever she felt scared. And every night when he tucked them both in, he felt something powerful growing inside him, a sense of purpose larger than his fears, larger than the hardships he faced. But challenges soon followed. Authorities wanted Ella placed in temporary housing. People questioned Daniel's intentions, his ability to care for another child, his financial stability. He felt crushed under the weight of judgments he had no strength to fight. But every time he considered giving up, Ella would look at him with those same eyes full of fragile hope, and he knew he couldn't let her fade into the system that had already failed her once.